Nezo, so Liu Zigu of Heizhou came to visit his uncle in Gai County when he was 15. I fell in love with a woman in the grocery store who was so beautiful. He sneaks into the store, pretending to buy a fan. And the woman calls out her father. Frustrated to see her father come out, Liu Zigu deliberately drove down the price with the old man and laughed. I saw the woman's father go somewhere else, and he went back to the store. When the woman is looking for her father again, Liu Zigu is busy stopping her from saying, "Don't look for it. Just say the price, and I won't take care of the price." The woman listened to him and made a deliberately high price. Liu Zigu couldn't bear to bid with her, gave her all the money she had and left. The next day, Liu Zigu returned, as he did yesterday. After paying the money, the woman chased him down and told him, "Come back. I was telling a lie. The price is too high." I gave him half of the money back. Liu Zigu felt more honest. After that, while her father was away, Liu Zigu often came to the store and slowly got acquainted with her. The woman asked Mr. Liu, "Where do you live?" Liu Zigu told her truthfully and asked her what her last name was. The woman said, "Surnamed Yao." As Liu Zigu walked away, the woman wrapped up his purchases in paper, then licked the paper to stick it on. Liu Zigu returned with the package and refused to open it for fear of disturbing the woman's tongue marks. Half a month later, Liu's actions were discovered by his servants, who told his uncle privately and forced him to return. Liu Zigu is genuinely loving and never forgettable, keeping things like the papaya powder she bought from a woman in a secret in a box. When no one is round, I look at it behind closed doors, and I'm in love and I miss it. The following year, Liu Zigu returned to Gaixian. "Just put your bag down, go to the store and find the woman." When I got there, the shop door was tightly closed, and Mr. Liu returned disappointed. He thought that the woman and her father had occasionally gone out and not returned, and went back early the next day, with the shop door still closed. Liu Zigu asked his neighbors to find out that the Yao family was originally from Guangning. Because the business was not good here, he went back to Guangning for the time being, and no one knew when they would come back. Liu Zigu was despondent and lost. After a few days, I went home unhappily. His mother proposed to him. He kept on stopping him. My mother felt strange and angry. The maid confided in her mother that she had become more restrained against him. He can't go to Gai County anymore. Liu Zigu was in a trance all day, unable to eat or sleep. The mother's anxiety was so great that she could give her son what he wanted. So he immediately picked a day and prepared his clothes so that his son could go to Gai County and convey his mother's intention and ask his uncle to ask for help. My uncle went to Yao's house immediately, and after a while, he came back and said to Liu Zigu, "No problem. Zhu has already been promised to the Guangning people." Liu Zigu was downcast and devastated. When I got home, I sobbed with a box in my hand, and I wandered about, hoping for a second piece of embroidery. A matchmaker came to pick up the family and praised the beauty of the Wangjia girls in Fuzhou. Liu worries that the matchmaker is not correct and orders the servant to drive to Fuzhou to see it. Inside the west gate, Mr. Liu saw a north-facing family with two half-open doors, one of which had a girl resembling Ms. Axiu. "Look again." The girl's walking, looking back. There's nothing wrong with it. So upset, Liu Zigu went to his neighbor's house in the east to find out the girl's surname was Li. Liu Zigu thought and wondered, how could there be such a similar person in the world? I stayed for a few days and didn't get a chance to see the girl. Only two eyes were on the girl's house, hoping she would still come out. One day, the sun was coming down and the girl came out. Suddenly, Liu Zigu was seen, immediately returned to his body, put his palm on his forehead after pointing at his back, and then entered the house. Liu Zigu was overjoyed, but I don't know what the girl meant. After a few moments of meditation, I shuffled to her house. Just a deserted garden, quiet and empty. There's a low wall to the west, just shoulder high. Liu suddenly understood the girl's point, so she squatted and hid in the grass. After a long time, someone came out of the wall and whispered, "Is it coming?" Liu Zigu promised to get up and take a closer look. He was overwhelmed with grief and tearful. The girl leaned over the wall, wiped away tears with a towel and kept comforting him. I tried to do everything I could, Liu said. I thought my life was hopeless. How could I expect today? How did you get here? The girl said. Li's my cousin. Liu Zigu asked Axiu to come over the wall, and Axiu said, you go back first. Send the servants to live elsewhere, and I will arrive by myself. Liu Zigu listened to her, sat at home and waited. A moment later, she came quietly. No heavy makeup, the robes were worn before. Liu Zigu sat her down, detailing her love affair. And he said, why haven't you been through the house yet? Xu said, to say I've made a promise is a lie. My father, because your family is too far away to marry you, has asked your uncle to lie to you to dispel your thoughts. After all, it's impossible to say that they're sleeping together and that they're having sex. Just after the 4th period, Xu got busy and climbed over the wall and left. Liu Zigu never thought about the Huangjia girl again. He lived here and forgot to go back. I haven't been home for a month. One night, the servant got up to feed the horse, and the light was still on in Liu's house. He secretly looked at Xianchu and was horrified, but he was afraid to tell the owner. The next morning, after a visit to the market, the servant pressed Mr. Liu and said, who is the person you are seeing at night? Mr. Liu began to balk at telling him. The servant said, this house is so deserted. It's a place for ghost foxes, and the man should love it. How did the Yao girl get here? Liu Zigu said sheepishly. What's so doubtful about her cousin next door? I've already made a detailed visit. There's only one lonely old lady to the east, only one child to the west, and no relatives living at home, said the servant. You must have met a ghost, otherwise, who hasn't changed their clothes for years. Besides, she's pale, her cheeks are thin, and she doesn't have a wine whirl when she smiles. She's not as good as Sayumi. Liu Zigu thought about it over and said, what then? The servant conspired to beat her with the guy when she came. After dark, the girl came and said to Liu, I know you doubt me, but I didn't mean anything, but I just thought about it and I'm sorry. Before we were done, the servants pushed in and the girl shouted at him, throw your guy away. Put your wine on and I'll say goodbye to your master. The servants threw away the weapons, as if they had been taken. Liu Zigu was more afraid and barely put on the table. The girl, as usual, was hilarious, holding up her finger to Liu Zigu and saying, knowing your heart, I am going to do my best for you. Why do you want to sneak me in? Although I am not Zhu, I think I am no worse than Zhu. You see, I'm not as good as the guy you used to be. Liu Zigu's hair was furious, and I couldn't speak. The girl listened, took a sip of her glass, and stood up and said, I'm leaving for now. After you've made the candles in the room, I'll compare myself to my new wife. Turned around and disappeared. Liu Zigu took Hu Jing's advice and went to Gaxian to complain that his uncle lied to him and refused to live in his uncle's house. Moving to a neighborhood near the Yao family, the matchmakers kissed themselves and impressed the Yao family with generous gifts. My brother-in-law chose a son-in-law for Axiu in Guanging, and Axiu's father went to Guanging for this reason. But he still doesn't know whether he will marry or not, said Yao's wife. We'll have to talk to him when he gets back. Liu Zigu listened to the words, panicked, lost his voice, and waited for them to return. After 10 days, I heard that I was going to war. At first, Liu Zigu suspected that it was a rumor. It took him a while to find out. He packed up and left in a hurry. In the middle of the war, the master and the servant were separated, and Liu Zigu was captured by an army outpost. The soldier, thinking Liu Zigu was a literate student, neglected to defend him, and Liu Zigu stole a horse and fled. When I got to Hejulan, I saw a woman with a dirty head, and she couldn't walk anymore. Liu Zigu walked past her on a horse, and the woman suddenly shouted, Aren't you Liu Lang on the horse? Liu Zigu stopped and looked at her. It was Hu. He was still afraid that she was a fox, and he said, Are you really Zhu? Woman asked. What do you say that for? Liu Zigu told him what had happened to him. The woman said, I am really Hui. My father took me back from Guanging and the soldiers caught me on the road. They gave me a horse, but I always fell off my horse. Suddenly a woman grabbed me by the wrist and ran away. And we were in the army. and no one was asking. The woman ran as fast as a flying eagle, and I couldn't keep up. You lose your shoes a dozen times. After a long run, the girl let go when someone yelled, "Goodbye, the road ahead is smooth. You can walk slowly, the one who loves you is coming, so come home with him." Liu Zigu understood that the woman was a fox and was grateful to her. Mr. Liu told Ms. Zhu why she had stayed in Gay County, and Ms. Zhu said that her uncle had proposed a surname to her son-in-law in Guanging, and that the fighting had begun before a bride price. That's when Liu Zigu knew his uncle wasn't lying. He hugged Axiu to the horse, and the two rode a horse home. Liu Zigu was pleased to see his mother unharmed when he entered the door. He tied the horse up and told his mother what had happened. My mother was also very happy, rushing to dress up for Axiu. Dressed up and glowing, she slapped her hands and said, "No wonder my stupid son can't forget you in his dreams. Then I'll lay the bedding down so I can sleep with Seo." They sent people to Gay County to deliver letters to the Yao family. A few days later, the Yao family came together and settled a wedding day and went back. Mr. Liu took out the box, which was untouched. There's a box of powder. Open it up, and the fat powder has turned to red soil. Liu Zigu is strange, and Zhu says with a whisper of a smile, "You only found out today about the scam a few years ago. I never checked your package, so I made a joke." As he was laughing, one person lifted the curtain and said, "Thanks for the matchmaker for your joys, right?" Liu Zigu, looking at another embroidery, hurriedly shouted, "For his mother, who came with his family," and no one could tell if he was serious. Liu Zigu looked back and was bewildered. It took him a long time to ask for an embroidery. After asking for a mirror to look in, Ms. Shu turned shyly and ran away, missing by the time she was revisited. The Liu Zigu couple, grateful for her kindness, placed a spiritual sacrifice in the house. One night, Liu Zigu came home drunk, and there was no one in the dark. He was about to light his own lamp, and Zhu came, and Liu Zigu pulled her and said, "Where have you been? It's disgusting to see you get so drunk." Miss Zhu said with a laugh, "You cross-examine people like that. Did I go to a men's club?" Liu Zigu laughs and holds up her cheek. "Who are you looking at me and Sister Fox?" says Axiu. "You're better than her, but you can't tell by the way you look." Liu says, "They said shut the door and they made out." When someone called the door later, Axiu got up and said, "You're just a person who looks only." Liu Zigu didn't understand her meaning, but Zhu came in when she went to open the door. He was so stunned that he realized it was a fox. Laughter is heard again in the dark, and the Liu Zigu couple look into the air to pray for the fox to show up. "I don't want to see you," said the lone. Liu Zigu asked, "Why not look like another person?" The fox said, "I can't." Liu Zigu asked, "Why not?" "Zhu is my sister, who died in an accident. While alive, she and I went with our mother to Tiangong to meet Western Queen Mother, and we adored her secretly. When we got home, we did a good imitation of the Western Queen. My sister is smarter than me, and I've only learned to look like her in 1 month. I've only learned to look like her in 3 months, but I've never been able to catch up. And now, another day, I think I've overtaken her, and I never expected to be the same. I appreciate the sincerity of both of you, so I'll come back from time to time. And now I'm gone." I stopped talking. The fox comes here every 3 or 5 days. Everything that's difficult at home can be solved. When Zhu returned to her home, the fox often stayed for a few days, and the family avoided her in fear. Whenever she lost something in her house, she was neatly dressed, standing with a few inches of hawksbill haircuts tucked into her hair, summoning her family to tell them solemnly, what was stolen must be returned to her original place tonight. Otherwise, she would suffer a headache and regret her inability to come. After dawn, I'll see what was stolen in the original place. 3 years later, when the fox never came again, he accidentally lost gold, silver and other valuables. And Zhu imitated the fox's grooming practice, scaring his family, which was often effective.
Alright, this story has come to an end. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. Thank you.